I welcome you all to the third chapter of Vistas, the most beautiful journey. Journey to the End of the Earth by Tishani Doshi. Let's know a little about the author before we unveil this beautiful journey. About the author, Tishani Doshi is an Indian poet, journalist and dancer based in Chennai. In 2012, she represented India at Poetry Parnassus at the South Bank Centre, London. She is also the recipient of an Eric Gregory Award for Poetry. Well, a very beautiful background and very strong one. Now, what has she given us? What is this beautiful journey all about? Let's move on to know the summary of the chapter. The lesson revolves around the world's most pristine place, Antarctica. Pristine place, the most unspoiled, the place which is originally as it was. No one has fidgeted with that. The most beautiful southernmost continent, Antarctica. Very few people have been there, the author being one of them. Now, she has been there, and you can imagine the most beautiful trip she must have ever made. Tishani Doshi, an Indian poet, accompanied few students under Students on Ice. What is Students on Ice? It is a program that takes young minds to the extreme ends of the world. Now here, why do they take young minds? Why not some celebrities? And why? Because these young minds, they are the future policy makers. In the sense, they will know exactly what is the position of the earth, how badly it is deteriorating, and accordingly, they will come back and they will find ways to save the planet earth. So that is the reason these young, enthusiastic, curious minds are taken to such places to actually know the facts of that places and also to find out how they can save and what they can do to save this place. This account gives an insight into how Antarctica gives us a glimpse of the past, present, and the future in its realist form. Now, why would you know, and how would you know the past, present and future? Well, you will know soon in the story, in the chapter, but here they will tell you how actually the whole, all the continents and the whole earth, how it had actually come into existence. So that was the past. What is the current scenario? What is the current scenario due to the global warming? You get to know of that. And what about the future? Where are we heading? Very soon, do you think the planet Earth is ever going to exist? So you get to know everything about it in its realist form. The author also talks about a few epiphanies about the relation between humanity and nature. A lot of realizations where how it is the humanity and the nature come together or how they complement each other, all about it. The struggle for dominance and its impact, climate change. Now the struggle for dominance, who is trying to overpower what? Who is trying to overpower? Who is going to rule over? Because of that impact, the climate change. We are all noticing these days how differently the climate is behaving. So yes, let's know more about it. Early this year, I found myself aboard a Russian research vessel, the academic Shokalsky, heading towards the coldest, driest and windiest continent in the world, Antarctica. Now that year, she boarded a research ship. It was the Russian research vessel, and that was the name of the academic Shokalsky. Right? Now she was heading where? She was heading towards Antarctica, where it is the coldest. We know you have only, the landscape is totally covered with ice all over. It is the driest and it is the windiest. You can imagine it is cold at the same time the wind blowing. Oh my God, you can just imagine yourself there. My journey began 13.09 degrees north of the equator in Madras. Very beautifully put. They are trying to tell you that she started her journey from there, but from where she started, it was, the place is 13.0 degrees north of the equator and involved crossing 9 time zones, 6 checkpoints, 3 bodies of water and at least as many ecospheres. Now, when she started her journey, what was the journey all about? How did it move on and what all did she cross? She crossed 9 time zones. You're all aware of the Indian Standard Time. Likewise, you have, those other time zones. She crossed literally 9 countries to reach there. She also crossed 6 checkpoints where they must have stopped, refueled, taken rest or whatever. There were a lot of checkpoints where you actually stop over, you take some breaks. 3 bodies of water beginning from the Bay of Bengal and heading further. All the, you have the water bodies on the way, and of course, at least as many ecospheres. Ecospheres, that place where you have the living and the non-living things existing. So yeah, a lot of those places as well she crossed. So this was her journey. It comprised about all this to reach Antarctica. Now, by the time I actually set foot on the Antarctic continent, I had been traveling over 100 hours in combination of a car, an aeroplane and a ship. So, my first emotion on facing Antarctica's expansive white landscape and uninterrupted blue horizon was relief, followed up with an immediate and profound wonder. Now, the moment she set foot, the moment she reached Antarctica, she thinks of the journey that she made. It was a 100-hour journey. Now, the 100 hours was not only in that ship, it was not only in the Russian research vessel, but it was a combination of a car. They had to travel by car. They had to even fly by the plane and a ship. It was a combination of all these 3 modes of communication. So my first emotion, so when I actually landed after 100 hours of travel, I actually set foot on this beautiful, expansive white landscape. Why is it a white landscape? First and foremost, what is a landscape? Landscape, we know, is the whole thing that comes across. So when you go to hill stations, what is a landscape? The whole scenery around you, the mountains, the river, the trees, everything around that you see, the whole thing at one glance is a landscape. So likewise, when she went to Antarctica, now what would she find on Antarctica? Would she find trees? You think so? Well, it wasn't the case. It was only and only ice in every form. Yes, so she saw the most expansive, covering a wide area. She saw the white landscape. White as in because it was totally covered only with snow. And uninterrupted blue horizons. Now, uninterrupted means what? When you're talking of the land meeting the sky, that thing which is visible to us, it was so beautiful, it was so clear, there was no obstacle to it, it was uninterrupted. And so, when she saw that, oh my God, she was relieved. She had landed in paradise. She could see such beauty, the nature at its best. That was followed up with an immediate and profound wonder. Now, after she reached there, she was relieved. Then immediately she realized, she was wondering, that great impact of wonder she had. What was that? She wondered at its immensity, its isolation, but mainly at how there could ever have been a time when India and Antarctica were part of the same landmass. Now, what was she wondering? What was the deep thought? What was the impact? Its immensity, that means the large size of something, how huge it was. Absolutely gigantic it was. Its isolation, that means there was no, it was totally aloof. It was totally separate from the entire world, sort of. It was totally isolated, right? Remaining alone or without relation to others, away from everybody and everything. But mainly at how, Now this is very important. Please look at this. Mainly at how there could have been a time when India and Antarctica were part of the same landmass, the same body of land. Now imagine, were you ever aware that India and Antarctica existed on the same landmass? You weren't, right? Neither was I. But let's see how it was. They are giving us the details about it. 650 million years ago, a giant amalgamated southern supercontinent, Gondwana, did indeed exist, centered roughly around the present-day Antarctica. Now they're telling you this is around 650 million years ago. Alright, there was a giant, a huge amalgamated, it was a united southern supercontinent. What is a supercontinent? Southern means it is in the southern pole towards the south pole. Extremely large land masses thought to have divided to form the present continents. The 7 present continents, now they have all come from this supercontinent. It was one then. It was one united continent. And then gradually from that supercontinent existed the present continents. Now this indeed, of course, they existed. They centered roughly around the present day Antarctica, what we know as Antarctica. All these continents were over there only. Then gradually they moved further. Things were quite different then. Now they're talking about the history of, how it all started, what all happened. So here we go. Things were quite different then. Humans hadn't arrived on the global scene and the climate was much warmer, hosting a huge variety of flora and fauna. Now, those days, humans had not even come into existence. How was the world then? Can you just even think of it, a world without humans? So yes, this is how they are describing it to you. It was different. The climate was much warmer. Now today, imagine what Antarctica is. It only goes in, I think, minus degrees. But then it was much warmer and it had a huge variety of vegetation and plant life, flora and fauna, plant and animal life. It was really different. There were n number of varieties of flowers and animals and birds and vegetables. So there was a lot of plant life basically. For 500 million years, Gondwana thrived. But around the time when the dinosaurs were wiped out and the age of the mammals got under the way, the landmass was forced to separate into countries, shaping the globe much as we know it today. Now, what are they telling you? For 500 years, Gondwana thrived. Gondwana was that supercontinent which we just spoke about, right? That was the name, Gondwana. Now, for 500 million years, it was flourishing, it was growing, it was getting better and better. For 500 good million years, it was growing. But around the time when the dinosaurs were wiped out, they started becoming extinct, they started dying, they went on decreasing in number, and the age of the mammals got underway, the mammals were discovered. Then the dinosaurs were actually getting extinct, but the mammals were discovered, they had found out. The landmass was forced. Now that was the time when these things happened. The landmass was forced to separate into countries, shaping the globe much as we know it today. Now that was the time when the whole thing, all the countries started coming out of this landmass, and then today, as we know the whole earth, we know the entire world, today is that scene. It all started, that was the starting point, Gondwana. To visit Antarctica now is to be a part of that history, to get a grasp of where we've come from and where we could possibly be heading. Yes, so when you visit Antarctica now, you're definitely a part of that history. You will know exactly what all had happened, how it had all began, how the division took place, how did the earth come into existence. And you get a grasp of where we have come from and where we could possibly be heading. Now, where are we actually heading to? We started from there, fine. The present scenario, global warming. Now, because of that, what all are the possibilities in future? We will know exactly where we are heading. It's to understand the significance of Cordilleran folds and Precambrian granite shields, ozone and carbon, evolution and extinction. Now, when you are to understand, when you know all about this, what all do you understand? What all do you know? The significance of Cordilleran folds. What are they? Nothing but mountains. All about the mountains, the significance, the importance, and Precambrian granite shields. It is that metamorphic rock which has, stable, which has been stable for years together. So you have those Precambrian granite shields, we call it. Ozone and carbon, we know the carbon dioxide layer that is being formed around the earth because of the increased temperature. So all about it. The evolution and the extinction. Where did it all start from? How did the living organisms actually, started from the starting point, and the extinction. Now, what is dying out? When you think about all that can happen in a million years, it can get pretty mind-boggling. Now, when you think about all this, it was 650 million years ago. How many things could have happened within that span of time? Now, when you go to think of this, of all the changes that have happened so far, they are startling. They are literally overwhelming. They are too much of it. Imagine, now just see how this is happening. Now, see how they have all taken place. Imagine India pushing northwards. Now from south, they started moving north. India pushing northwards, jamming against Asia. It was actually pushing strongly against Asia to buckle its crust. That means it was under the pressure. So to buckle its crust and form the Himalayas. Now that's how the Himalayas formed. South America drifting off to join North America. Now that was another amalgamation, opening up the Drake Passage to create a cold circumpolar current, keeping Antarctica frigid, desolate, and at the bottom of the world. Now, how did these all take place? They all started joining. India went northwards, it jammed against Asia, it buckles its crust, and it formed Himalayas. Then South America drifting off to join North America. That's how that was formed. And then opening up the Drake Passage to create a cold circumpolar current, keeping Antarctica. Now this circumpolar current, this is the current actually, it is situated around the poles. Now this Drake Passage which came into existence, now it was a huge, it was that passage where the ocean was giving out a current. You all know, right? So when that current comes out, now because of the current, that place never ever got, the warmness. It was always in the cold state. And because of that, this current, this circumpolar current kept Antarctica frigid, means extremely cold, and desolate. Obviously, there was totally uninhabitation over there. Nobody could survive there. And at the bottom of the world. Now this Drake Passage which was formed over there, and because of that ocean, because of that cold circumpolar current, this was the situation out there. For a sun worshipping South Indian like myself, now she was a South Indian, remember she was based in Chennai. So she used to worship the sun. South India, we all know they're all sun worshipping temples, and they do a lot of it. 2 weeks in a place where 90% of the Earth's total ice volumes are stored is a chilling prospect, not just for circulatory and metabolic functions, but also for the imagination. She said, just imagine a person like me from South India who worships the sun every day, right? Now, do you think she must have seen it here? Not even possible. So, 2 weeks in such a place where 90% of the Earth's total ice volumes are stored. Now 90% of the Earth's ice you will find in Antarctica. So she was there for, good 2 weeks. And then that was a chilling prospect. It was a chilling prospect, as in it was a possibility of a future event. A chilling one, an extremely cold thing. Now, it was not just for circulatory, it was not, for the circulatory system, it is not just for your digestive or metabolism, but it was also for the imagination. She kept imagining things as well. So that was the impact of her 2-week stay. It's like walking into a giant ping pong ball, devoid of any human markers, no trees, billboards, buildings, none of them. You lose all earthly sense of perspective and time here. Now she says it was like walking into a giant ping pong ball. That whole thing was like a ping pong ball. It was huge, it was wide, it was really nice and big. Devoid means it did not have, it was lacking something, or it was free from any human markers. Nothing that human had created was there. Absolutely nothing. So there were no trees, no billboards, no buildings, nothing what the humans have created. You lose all earthly sense of perspective, your viewpoint, all your viewpoints about the earthly type, from keeping that in mind, you lose it all here, and the time here. It is a very, very different experience. The visual scale ranges from the microscopic to the mighty. Now, how is it? The visual scale, as in you can see. Visual scale means what you can see, the sight, the vision, the view rather. From the microscopic, from the tiny to the mighty, you can see it all. Midges, now what are the midges? They are two-winged flies. You can see those two-winged flies. And mites to blue whales. Now, from that tiny fly to the blue whales, that huge, so it was from microscopic to mighty. And icebergs as big as countries. The icebergs over there, they are the same size as that of a country. Which was the largest one? The largest recorded iceberg was the size of Belgium. Such huge, gigantic icebergs. Days go on and on and on in surreal 24-hour austral summer light and a ubiquitous silence, interrupted only by the occasional avalanche or calving ice sheet, consecrates the place. What do you find there? When you are there, what all do you come across? Your days can go on just like a dream. It was like a 24-hour dream that you are seeing. Austral summer light, austral here means of the southern hemisphere. It was a very shady thing. It was not the direct thing. And a ubiquitous, that is silence, which is found everywhere. Totally, wherever you go, all that you can listen to is silence. Yes, you actually listen to the silence. Interrupted only by the occasional avalanche. Avalanche, we are all aware. It is actually when, the ice things fall down, the ice bodies break, you hear that noise. Only that sometimes the avalanche was there, or the calving ice, that's the splitting or shredding of ice sheets, consecrates the place, that it makes something sacred. It makes it something really pious. It makes it something really divine and beautiful. Now, this was when you are spending your time there, this is what you're going to experience. And it's an immersion that will force you to place yourself in the context of the Earth's geological history. Now, it is that immersion. Actually, you feel, yourself that you are there in the Earth's geological history. And for humans, the prognosis isn't good. The future, the forecast, the humans out there, it's not even possible, right? And anyways, talking of anywhere, right now the forecast isn't really good. Talking of global warming, we are actually coming across so many things. Human civilizations have been around for a paltry 12,000 years, barely a few seconds on the geological clock. Now, if we look at it not from our clock, not the 24-hour clock, but if we look at it from the geological clock, we have been here for, I think, a very small 12,000 years, according to that. And for us, it's like a few seconds. our lifespan, now even if you're living 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever years, it's just a few seconds. It is equal to a few seconds on the geological clock. In that short amount of time, we've managed to create quite a ruckus, etching our dominance over nature with our villages, towns, cities and megacities. Now within those few seconds, as per the geological clock, we humans are so great. We have literally spoilt nature. We have overruled nature. We have interfered with the nature system. What we have done, we've created a ruckus, we've created a commotion, which is engraving our dominance. It is actually showing how we are overpowering, how we are overruling nature. With what? By making our villages, towns, cities and megacities. Well, this pandemic that we have faced in the year 2020, isn't that a big example of how we actually overpowered nature, but currently nature is giving it back to us, right? With interest. So, the rapid increase of human populations has left us battling with other species for limited resources. And the unmitigated burning of fossil fuels has now created a blanket of carbon dioxide around the world, which is slowly but surely increasing the average global temperature. Understood factor. I mean, for all the nonsense that we are doing as humans, we are supposed to get this back. Obviously, it will echo back. Whatever you do echoes back. All that goes around comes around. So now the human increase, it is the rapid increase, it's a tremendous increase of the population. Now we are getting limited resources for the same. We are battling, we are literally fighting for the resources. And the unmitigated, it is an unconditional burning of fossil fuels. The fossil fuels, we are aware, these are the natural fuels like coal or gas formed from the remains of living organisms. Now, this is getting totally, it is getting burnt. Now, it has now created a blanket of carbon dioxide. We are aware of the global warming, which is slowly but surely increasing the average global temperature. Now, because of all these fossil fuels, everything that carbon dioxide layer that has been formed is definitely giving us a big problem. Now, think of this. Climate change is one of the most hotly contested environmental debates of our time, of course. Right now, we can debate so much about the climatic changes that are happening. Will the West Antarctic ice sheet melt entirely? Now, you have the west and the east side here of Antarctica. So, they're asking you that will the West Antarctic ice sheet melt entirely? Is it possible because of these high rising temperatures, because of the exceeding global temperatures, will that sheet actually melt entirely? Will the Gulf Stream ocean current be disrupted? Now, this ocean current that we are, because of which the temperatures are being maintained towards these places, will that be disrupted? Will it have a problem? Will it be the end of the world as we know it? Well, a big question mark. Do any of us know it? None of us. Well, it may be not. We have no idea. But yes, somewhere down we know exactly where we are heading. So we all need to play our roles. Either way, Antarctica is a crucial element in this debate. Now, Antarctica is the most important. It is the most important element in this debate. Not just because it's the only place in the world which has never supported a human population, it has never sustained a human population, and therefore remains relatively pristine in this respect. Now, we know right now Antarctica is actually the main, talk of the thing. It is the main element in this debate, but not just because it had not supported human life. It's not all about it, but it remains relatively pristine. Like I told you right in the beginning, it remains actually in its original condition, unspoiled, untouched, very beautiful. Of course, there was no human interference there, no towns, villages, cities, mega cities. So it remains in its original form. But more importantly, because it holds in its ice cores 500,000-year-old carbon records trapped in its layers of ice. Now, the layers and layers of ice which make up Antarctica, it holds within itself 500,000-year-old carbon. Now, that carbon is actually creating that problem. If we want to study and examine the Earth's past, present and future, Antarctica is the place to go. We already said this, how it started, what is the current scenario, and how will it be in the future. Keeping the global warming in mind, you will get to know. Students on Ice, the program I was working with on the Shokalski aims to do exactly this by taking the high school students to the ends of the world and providing them with inspiring educational opportunities which will help them foster a new understanding and respect for our planet. Now, this program, Students on Ice, they're very wise. They've taken a very wise move actually. Why? Because they aim to take the high school students, like we said, those young minds, those enthusiastic minds, the future policy makers, they take them to the end of the world and providing them with inspiring educational opportunities, as in they get, like from the education viewpoint, they get all the idea, all the knowledge about what is actually going to happen to our planet, what is the current scenario of the planet and what actually is going to happen to the planet. So it will help them foster a new understanding. They will realize so many things, so many mistakes that the human race is actually committing, and they will realize it. So they will have a new understanding and respect for our planet. Unlike so many people who actually don't respect the planet Earth, but yes, they will realize, and so obviously they will start respecting. It's been in operation for 6 years now, headed by Canadian Jeff Green, who got tired of carting celebrities and retired rich curiosity seekers who could only give back in a limited way. Now, this program, Students on Ice, it started 6 years back by a Canadian Jeff Green. Now, he realized that taking celebrities over there doesn't really make sense. They are not the curiosity seekers. They are all well retired, they are rich, they are not curious enough to know anything or to do anything about it. And they could only give back in a limited way. They could not really actually help the planet in any way, not much rather. So he felt it's not the right thing to do. With Students on Ice, he offers the future generation of policy makers a life-changing experience at an age when they are ready to absorb, learn, and most importantly, act. Now, see, he looks at it from a very nice viewpoint. He looks at it, he says, he offers the future generation of policy makers. Like I told you, these are the policy makers. They will come up with many new innovative ideas. Life-changing experience at an age. Now, obviously, when you go there, when you discover so much, it is so much new for you. It gives you, it extends your horizon. And it tells you that they are ready to absorb. Now, that is the time you want to know more. You want to actually learn more. You behave like a sponge. You want to take more and more knowledge. You want to learn and most importantly act. It is not just taking, but after you take, you react and you give back. You act accordingly, according to what you learn. Now, if you see the iceberg is melting at such a fast rate, obviously you want to stop it. You want to save the planet Earth. You want to reduce the global warming. Rather, you want to, actually dissolve it totally. You will act accordingly, right? This is how he looks at it. The reason the program has been so successful is because it's impossible to go anywhere near the South Pole and not be affected by it. Now, obviously, if you just go like that, you definitely cannot survive. You cannot go to the South Pole just like that and then not be affected by it because of the, the temperatures that are there, negative temperatures that you see there. It's easy to be blasé about polar ice caps melting while sitting in the comfort zone of our respective latitude and longitude. But when you can visibly see glaciers retreating and ice shelves collapsing, you begin to realize that the threat of global warming is very, very real. Now, it's very easy when you sit in the comfort of your houses. It's so beautifully given. When you are in the comfort zone of our respective latitude and longitude, obviously your houses, your comfort zones, you sit there and you watch it on TV. Oh, fine. You feel, oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, you can see them retreating. You can see them melting. But the experience, when you actually go there to that place and witness it and you see it and you experience it, oh my God, it's way different than what you see on your screens. The ice shelves collapsing, you can actually see the glaciers retreating. They're all moving back, they're all moving away, they're all breaking. Those, those ice shelves, which are the floating sheet of ice attached to the land, they are all actually collapsing. So when you experience it, it's way different than what you see it on your screens, right? That's how the author is trying to tell us. Antarctica, because of her simple ecosystem and lack of biodiversity, is the perfect place to study how little changes in the environment can have big repercussions. What do you mean to say? Here, because of her simple ecosystem, what is the ecosystem? A complex biological network of interacting living organisms. So that simple ecosystem and lack of biodiversity, it is lack of variety of plant and animal life. Now, because of all this, it is the perfect place to know, to find the changes in the environment, that how these changes in the environment can actually have big outcomes, big results, big consequences. Take the microscopic phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is nothing but basically like your photosynthesis, right? So the microscopic phytoplankton, those grasses of the sea that nourish and sustain the entire Southern Ocean's food chain. Now it is this process, those grasses of the sea, actually they nourish and sustain, they support the entire Southern Ocean's food chain. These single-celled plants, they use the sun's energy to assimilate carbon, to actually absorb, to digest the carbon and synthesize organic compounds in that wondrous and most important of processes called photosynthesis. Now, this is how they work over there. They actually, use the sun's energy. They actually digest the carbon with the help of that, and then they synthesize organic compounds in that wondrous and most important of processes which we call photosynthesis. Scientists warn that a further depletion in the ozone layer will affect the activities of phytoplankton, which in turn will affect the lives of all the marine animals and birds of the region and the global carbon cycle. He says, now all the scientists have actually, we are all aware, the warnings have already come to us, we are already seeing the reactions. They are saying a further depletion, a further reduction in the ozone layer. Now if that ozone layer still starts getting thinner and thinner, it will affect the activities of phytoplankton. It will definitely, the whole process of phytoplankton, which in turn, now if that gets affected, it's a continuous cycle. It's it's connected. It will affect the lives of all the marine animals, because if this gets affected, the marine animals will get affected, and birds of the region and the global carbon cycle. This whole process will actually be in a big mess if the ozone layer still gets thinner and thinner. In the parable, in a story which is moral related, in a fable of the phytoplankton, there is a great metaphor. There is something symbolic, something, when you say metaphor, you compare things, but you don't actually use the words as in like we use in poems. So there is something representing something for existence. Take care of the small things and the big things will fall into place. You have to start with a small baby step. You first take care of those small things. You start with this process, automatically you see the bigger processes will be handled automatically on their own. They will be handled. You will not have to bother, but first take care of the basics. My Antarctic experience was full of such epiphanies, such sudden realizations. So many things came to my mind, but the best occurred just short of the Antarctic Circle at 65.55 degrees south. There were many realizations, she got to know, she discovered while she was there. But which was the best one? The best one was when it was just short of the Antarctic Circle. Their ship was just heading towards, 65.55 degrees south. What happened? The Shokalsky, the Russian research vessel, the ship, it had managed to wedge herself as in to force into a narrow space. Now there was a very narrow space over there. So the ship had managed to get over there into a thick white stretch of ice between the peninsula and Tadpole Island, which was preventing us from going any further. Now their ship had got stuck somewhere at some place between the peninsula and the Tadpole Island. That passage was very narrow, so their ship was stuck out there. But the captain decided we were going to turn around and head back north. He says we cannot proceed further. We cannot still go any further, so we have to go in reverse. Now we have to go back. But before we did, we were all instructed to climb down the gangplank and walk on the ocean. Oh my God, can you just believe this? Walk on the ocean. Beautiful. So they were asked to climb down the gangplank. What is that? It is a plank used to board or disembark from a ship or a boat. You have that, connecting thing where you can go up or you can come down. So we were all asked to go down that gangplank and walk on the ocean. Wow. So there we were, all 52 of us, kitted out in Gore-Tex and glares, walking on a stark whiteness that seemed to spread out forever. There were totally 52 of them, and they were all in this, obviously you cannot go there in your normal clothes. You have to wear something special to beat, that chilling atmosphere, that chilled weather. You have to wear something to protect yourself. So that is the Gore-Tex. It is a synthetic waterproof fabric, permeable to air and water vapor. You're well protected against it. Walking on a stark whiteness. Stark means complete. Now ocean, it was only ocean and it was only white. There was nothing but ice all over. Whiteness that seemed to spread out forever. Everywhere their eyes went, everywhere that they could see, they could only see ice. Underneath our feet, now just see the beautiful experience they had. Underneath our feet was a meter thick ice pack, and underneath that, now see, they were standing, below that they had a meter thick ice pack, and below that ice pack, what was there? 180 meters of living, breathing salt water. Now, those were the layers formed out there. In the periphery, around the border, crebitor seals were stretching and sunning themselves on ice floes, much like stray dogs will do under the shade of a banyan tree. Now, while they were there in the periphery, they could see it around there in the corners, on the borders. Crebitor seals, the seals were stretching and they were sunning themselves. They were sitting or lying under the sun. They wanted to get the warmth. So they were sunning themselves on ice floes, just like how we have these stray dogs which will do under the shade of a banyan tree. They will go and relax under the shade of a banyan tree. It was nothing short of a revelation. What is a revelation? A divine or supernatural disclosure. Come on, you can just imagine this thing going on and it is happening to you. Unbeatable experience. Everything does indeed connect. This revelation, this beautiful divine disclosure. 9 time zones, 6 checkpoints, 3 bodies of water, and many ecospheres later, I was still wondering about the beauty of balance in play on our planet. She said, after going through all this, I was still wondering how the balance of the beauty of balance in play on our planet. How would it be if Antarctica were to become the warm place that it once used to be? You remember initially when there was no human existence, it was warm, it was not cold like this. Will we be around to see it? Or would we have gone the way of the dinosaurs, mammoths and woolly rhinos? Do you think all these things are really possible? Will we even be alive to actually, experience all this? Who's to say? Who can say that? But after spending 2 weeks with a bunch of teenagers who still have the idealism to save the world. Now, she spent 2 good weeks with a bunch of teenagers, 52 of them, and they all had that unrealistic belief in the perfect form. They were in a pursuit of an ideal form that, yes, we have to save the earth. We have to save the world. All I can say is that a lot can happen in a million years. But what a difference a day makes. She says in a million years there can be, innumerable, uncountable, unmeasurable, changes. But what a difference a day makes. A day can also make a big difference. So see, can you see that so beautifully written? The climate is changing. So should we. Act now. We have to change it. We have to protect it. And this is what we learn. Facts alone can't save the world. Hearts can, hearts must. A very beautiful thing put up by Carl Safina. She says, I repeat this very beautiful quote, facts alone can't save the world. Whatever, we are aware of the facts, yes, but we need to also act. Hearts can and hearts must. That emotional connect, that we know this is our living place. We know that our future generations are also going to survive here. So yes, we all need to act accordingly. So yes, you being the future policy makers, start now. So yes, keep watching and keep learning.